Y'all planning for this?
This is Jamie Shalansky in an episode of Worlds to Conquer, where we are unpacking the tips, tricks, and how to implement Surge in your RIA. So as you've been learning, Surge is a time block specific period in the calendar in which we meet with all clients. So at our RIA, Shalansky and Associates, we have 5 financial advisors and roughly 500 households. We surge 3 times a year. We do it in the spring, we do it in the summer, and then we conclude in the fall. In the spring, we're always surging mid-March to mid-April, and we do that because it's tax time and people are really in the motion, clients and prospects alike, of getting documentation together. And we found it being the most impactful to answer client questions and get the most documents back from clients during that specific time period. We surge in the summertime. Now we're Alaskans, so we surge around the salmon schedule. So when the salmon are running, our clients are out, and so are we as we're putting away the winter's catch. And then in the fall, we are always surging between mid-October and mid-November, right before the holidays. Why? It's really effective whether we're doing Roth conversions, we've got year-end planning decisions that have to be made, we're looking to fund different accounts, or we're doing tax preparation, or we're doing estate planning. Whatever our value adds are that we're delivering during that surge is going to dictate that appointment. So even though we surge 3 times a year, we offer 4 value adds that we're delivering to clients. And we do those 2 weeks before our AUM billing. We are a value-only advisor, so we charge for the financial planning and we charge for AUM at Shalansky and Associates as our RIA. So we always want to make sure we're sending those out, whether we're meeting with the clients or not. And in this episode, we are going to be talking about when I surge, you surge, we surge. And this is about the family unit and how Surge works with those dynamics. It has been my experience that you can get your team on board with Surge far easier and faster than you can your spouse. So most of the financial advisors that I work with, this is where Surge becomes problematic. And this, after the first couple of times that they've run it, is where they want to give up and quit, is because they can't get their family units on board. And whether you have an enterprise office where you have multiple financial advisors, or you're a solo practitioner with maybe one assistant, Surge is really important for your family to understand. So you need to set them up for success. So they need to learn about what Surge is, why it's important, and how it's going to transform your family's lives by implementing. And if you're a financial advisor that is considering implementing Surge, stop, take it off the decision board, do it. Implement it right away, but make sure you're doing it effectively. And in this episode, we're going to talk about how we get the family on board with Surge as well. So rule number 1, as I just mentioned, make sure they know what Surge is, why it matters, why it's effective. You got 52 weeks out of the year. In our scenario, we have 12 weeks where we are dedicated to nothing but client appointments. Now, outside of that Surge, does that mean that we're no longer working? Of course not. And that is one of the financial advisors' misconceptions when they start interviewing with our RIA to join our practice, is that they have this idea that when they're not surging, they no longer have to work or respond to clients. Well, that's not true, right? Because Surge is a structured period of time where you're meeting with all of your clients, but things are still going to come up and things still have to get done. But this is a more flexible time period in which you can design it in order to get the work done and still be outside and being around the people that you love, doing the things that you love. You're no longer tied to an office or a desk. You can travel more frequently. You just have to be really intentional with the design of that. So making sure that your family understands that, hey, our schedule is about to offer us a lot of freedom and a lot of flexibility, but the cost of that freedom and flexibility is being hyper disciplined during these specific time blocked periods in the calendar. Now, our Surge schedule is set a year in advance. This is not a collaborative event. We do not sit down with all financial advisors and ask them when the schedule works for them. I don't like managing 2 people's schedule, let alone 5. We sit down as a leadership team and we pound out the Surge schedule, and then we tell the rest of the financial advisors, what that schedule is a year in advance so they can make certain adjustments on the timeline. Now, it's become easier and easier with our office because except for the summer surge, we know exactly when the spring and the fall are going to be. And during that time, there is no pay time off. So this becomes really important with setting that expectation with that financial advisor. But the rest of the year, you have tremendous flexibility to be there for the events that you otherwise might not have been able to if you were working at a wirehouse or BD that required you Monday through Friday to be meeting with clients. So once your spouse, significant other, and family all understand what Surge is, why it's important, and how it adds value to your clients and to them personally, now we need to go through the rules. And the rules of Surge begin to evolve over time and should be unique to your own family. I'm going to share with you some of the Surge rules we've set up in my family, as well as some of the other Shalansky families after trial and error. Rule number 1, no getting hurt during Surge. I know this sounds ridiculous, but hear me out on this one. Can accidents happen? Yes, of course, accidents can happen. However, there are certain activities in which the probability of an accident increases dramatically. So my spouse loves to mountain bike, BMX, snowboard, dirt bike, do anything that is highly dangerous and adventurous. So one rule we have is that during Surge, there are none of those activities. Those activities have to go on a hiatus and they have to go on a break. Why? Because there's a strong likelihood that you're going to get hurt, and then now I'm going to be in an imposition. And I know that sounds very selfish, but the reality is, like I said, there are 52 weeks in a year. 12 of them have to be hyper disciplined and focused. Another rule I have during Surge is no dinner obligations. For whatever reason, 52 weeks in the year, but those 12, everyone wants to get together and have a dinner, drinks, social events, paint classes, whatever trendy crap is going around that requires you to have an evening event. So one of the things that I set in place is no dinner obligations, no nighttime, evening, weekend obligations. Every single weekday during that 4-week period, our financial advisors sit with 5 to 11 appointments a day. So let's just use the 11 as example. That's 22 people. That's 22 people that you are having a conversation with, going through emotional topics and developing strategic plans for. It can be very exhausting. Now, as the financial advisor, when you're in the thralls of those appointments, you're not exhausted. In fact, you are high off of the value that you are delivering to people, and you want to keep going, keep going, keep going. But like any performance athlete will tell you, and kid you not, Surge is a professional form of athleticism. When you get off the field, when you stop, for me, it's when I get in my car. So I'll get in my car. I have an hour and a half commute home normally, and I will start returning phone calls, making sure I'm catching up on messages for things that I couldn't get to during the day. And then about halfway through that commute, oh my gosh, have I hit the wall? And my energy starts draining very, very quickly. Now, unfortunately, that also means as my energy level is coming down, guess what I'm about to do? I'm about to open the door and enter my family, who's expecting me to have a different level of energy with them. They don't expect me to come home totally exhausted and not wanting to talk, but sometimes, truthfully, that's where I'm at. I'm talked out. Believe it or not, that can happen to me. But my family is expecting something from me, right? And so I need to make sure that I'm set up in that last half hour of my commute to really re-energize myself. And I need to decompress from the day because I still have a marital obligation and a parental obligation to walk through the door with an energy that is welcoming and inviting for my family. So you've got to figure out your hacks, right? Do you listen to podcasts in order to decompress? Do you listen to symphonies? Do you call your mom? Do you do something on the way home that transitions you from that high energy athleticism boss mode into loving spouse, loving parent, interested in the day, but needs to refill their cup also? So figure out what it is that does, but make sure you allow yourself to decompress. One of the rookie mistakes I made very, very early on is that when I was in Surge and I was in these back-to-back appointments, because 2 days a week I do them virtually, and so I was on my telephone appointments, I would come out of Surge and I'm still high on that attitude. And I'm like, okay, great. Why isn't this done? Why isn't this done? Why isn't this done? And I started barking orders at my family like they were my employees, and I don't even bark at my employees. But I was was just in that really high place of wanting to be able to conquer and get things done. So making sure that I know mentally that I've got to break from that mode and transition back into family, and whatever hack it takes to get me there is important, because what you don't want is a mid-surge fight with your spouse saying, why are we even doing this if this is how you're going to be like? And you can really prevent that by listening to these tips and tricks, talking to your spouse, and setting yourself up for success ahead of time. So we talk about refilling the cup. In my household, I do all the cooking. God love my spouse, but cooking is not their forte. So I do all the cooking. Well, during surge, I don't want to have to meal plan and meal prep and defrost and cook and prepare, etc. Now, am I still going to do the cooking? Yep, 100%. Surge doesn't turn my spouse into some magical chef, right? But what could I do ahead of time? Well, ahead of time, I could be meal planning and meal prepping. I could be making sure I'm loading up my Instacart to have groceries delivered to me because I don't go to the grocery store. It's a waste of my time. And then I could also think about what I did last surge was having a caterer do 2 or 3 meals out of the week. So I just come home, put it in the oven. We still have something healthy. We still have something good for us and hot on the table. We eat as a family, gathered around the table every single night. So that's important family value to us. And that's non-negotiable. I'm not giving that up for surge. But I also don't want to be irritated, exhausted, and annoyed by having to prepare this meal. So what can I do ahead of time to make sure I'm ahead of that? Now, the same thing goes into weekend obligations, right? So one of the things, fortunate enough to be with somebody that's very tidy. I'm very tidy also, but I also know during surge, I'm not going to be vacuuming the house every single day or doing the dishes or doing XYZ. So what I do instead is I have a housekeeper come in and I ramp up during surge. So that way the house is completely tidy. I don't feel I'm letting my spouse down and they're having to bear the burden of the surge as well. And we found a balance that way. So these little tips and tricks about what could you do to structure these things that are going to become hiccups, roadblocks, conversations, arguments, or fights during surge in order to not have them. And it's all about problem solving and setting expectations with your spouse. So on the weekend, same policy in place. I don't want to be riddled with obligations or household chores that I have to do during this time period. It is only 4 weekends, 3 times a year. I don't want to have to do those other things when I know that I've got to gear up and be dedicated to the surge ahead. And this is really important. It takes a lot of time for people to understand this because especially financial advisors, we are so inundated with how important the grind is and that we've got to grind, that we fail and forget to concentrate on how important the recovery is to that grind. You have to know how to recover in order to achieve unparalleled levels of success. And don't think for one second that you're like, oh, well, we just talked about that. There's 52 weeks in the year. You're only surging for 12, so you can refill your cup all those other times. No, you got to mini recover every single chance you get. So during that surge period on the weekends, that's about recovery. That's not about obligations, what I've got to do, running around for the family, getting things done, etc. That's about me doing whatever it takes to refill my cup so that I am ready for Monday and geared up and ready to give my absolute best to my clients and balance it with my family. So really important to set those expectations, have those conversations ahead of time, and figure out what refills your cup and how you're going to balance that during surge. This also means no client events during surge. Client events take a lot of energy to host, and throwing one during surge is just a recipe for disaster. And so we found that it just absolutely depletes our energy for the rest of surge. So we do not do these during surge periods. Now, one thing that we will do during surge periods, and we just started doing this in the last couple of years, is that we will do a lot of marketing during surge. So my brother, Micah Shalansky, and I run a company called Plan Your Federal Retirement. We're the lead financial advisors in the federal employee space, and we write a lot of content to get there. And when we're in surge, we find that we are really energized and hyped up about certain topics that clients are talking to us about, and they're giving us a ton of material. And so we use that time period to do a lot of our marketing and our content because our energy is so high. Our office office in Anchorage, we have a recording studio inside of it. So it's not uncommon for us to wrap up a client meeting, have 20 or 30 minutes before the next client meeting, and then go back there, do a quick recording on content. We'll outline some type of marketing piece that we want to make sure that we get to prospects or clients in the near future. You're in the right headspace for that. You're in the right energy level for that. And you're in that client mode. So the deliverables that we produce during that time are far more impactful than if we're coming in and trying to ramp that energy up during Surge. Just something that worked for us. So we did a ton of marketing during Surge. We're going to continue to do that. It works really well for our office. So if you are outlining Surge, how you're going to accomplish it this next year, make sure you're also kind of thinking of that. If you think you might be similar to us in the fact that you're in a good headspace, you're in a good energy level, then pre-plan ahead of time what kind of content that you want to publish, or at least get yourself in a place that you're ready to do that. If you do videos, if you do podcasts, if you do articles, how are you going to quickly and easily do that when you're in that kind of headspace? So these are the tips and tricks about when I surge, you surge, we surge, and making sure the whole family is on board with that. So we really want to make sure that you are taking the time to be deliberate about setting your Surge schedule. Again, we at Schlein Skin Associates do Surge 3 times a year. We do it in the spring between mid-March and mid-April. And then we do it in the summer when the salmon aren't running. And then we do it again in the fall between mid-October and mid-November. Those are specific time periods that were really impactful for clients. So don't reinvent the wheel. One of the things we're great about at the Perfect RIA is that this is open collaboration. Don't sit there and rack your brain about what time periods work. Use our time periods. We're telling you they work. And it isn't regional specific. It's not just because we're in Alaska that these work. 46% of our clients are not in the state of Alaska. We work with people throughout the continental United States. These time periods work for all people strategically. We got 40 plus years of developing the reason why Surge matters during these time periods. Take our advice, rip them off, use it in your own practice, implement it right away. And then make sure your family's on board with that. Make sure they understand, yeah, you're going to have to sacrifice sometimes. You might miss certain events during those Surge periods, but you have a lot of time outside of Surge to make it up more dynamically than you would otherwise. This works for the whole family, and most families are incredibly supportive if you set them up for success and you tell them why it matters to your lives. All right, and then I shared with you a couple of rules. One, no getting hurt. So if anyone participates in super dangerous activities, kids, spouses, etc., please, let's prohibit those just during Surge. That's all we ask, or dial them down. Put yourself in a helmet. Wear bubble wrap as you walk around. I don't care. Just don't make me be in the emergency room again the night before Surge starts. No dinner obligations, no commitments that are going to deplete your energy instead of refill your energy. You have to be as dedicated to your recovery as you are to your grind. That is the only way that you achieve unparalleled levels of success. No client events during Surge. They take a tremendous amount of energy, and you got to know if that's appropriate for your office. You should plan events like marketing and strategic development inside of Surge if you're in the right kind of headspace for that. And that's a personal question. Make sure you're just asking it before you start Surge. Okay, TPR Nation, thanks for tuning in. This has been Jamie Shalansky, and there are worlds to conquer.
Hold on before we go. Something that you need to know. This isn't tax, legal, or investment advice. That isn't our intent. Information designed to change lives. Financial planning can make you thrive. Start today, don't think twice. Be a better husband, father,